Good afternoon. Special edition of Political Paula coming to you happy and healthy. We're very healthy here. We have no issues whatsoever. Luckily, where I live right now, I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We have no confirmed cases of coronavirus in our little city here, and we're happy about that. But again, so what if we do? Now, you might find that interesting that I say that, but again, I think we're losing our minds here, and I don't think we should. And that is what this show is about, is not to spread fear or false facts or anything like that, but simply to say, as one American to another, that we have to be very careful in this time. This morning, I put a post on Facebook where I told my friends and followers on Facebook to refrain from posting personal health information about themselves on social media. And I got a message from a viewer who happens to be pregnant and scheduled for, she's going to have her baby in June. And she said, well, why wouldn't you want every American to be forced to be tested for this virus? Well, first of all, we don't have enough tests. We know this, to test every American. So why would we waste tests on people who really have very low risk of getting the virus, like myself, like my husband? We don't go anywhere. I mean, we haven't traveled. We haven't been around anyone. Hell, the president has actually been exposed to somebody who had coronavirus, and he was out shaking hands and hugging people, and we haven't had any of that. So for the government, again, when you give the government power, it's really hard to get them to relinquish that power. That's what this show is about. I'm going to talk to you about 40 Days in Nebraska. And many of you may not have seen this. Remember the very first cruise ship that was quarantined? And that's where we got the virus. Because, see, this was a foreign virus. Those of you who say this is not a foreign virus, that's wrong. It is. It didn't start in America. It's not a Philadelphia virus or a Chicago virus or a Washington State virus. It is a virus that started in China. But it's also not a new virus. This is something I really want to talk to you about, but I don't want to go long, and I want to get the point out about why you need to be careful about what you post on social media. That's the real topic of this show, and I will do the show again. I'll do another show about inviting the virus into our country, which we actually did. So anyway, that cruise ship, those people were immediately quarantined. It was supposed to be for 14 days. 5 of those passengers, they had the virus. They tested positive for it. They had it. They recovered from it. They're healthy. They have been healthy for 3 weeks. They got well in a week. It is now day 40. And they are still testing positive for the virus, but they have no symptoms. And because they got put into this situation where instead of being told to quarantine at home, they were forced to go to Nebraska on purpose, which again, just like I said about West Virginia, you don't go to Nebraska on purpose. These American citizens are being held hostage in Nebraska in a little tiny hospital-sized room. They're not allowed to, I guess, drink alcohol or smoke or do anything that they normally would do. They're not on vacation. They're not at their jobs. They're not with their families. They have no symptoms of the virus, but that pesky little test keeps coming up positive. And even the CDC doesn't know why. You don't believe me, you Google this. You Google, I think it was the Crown Princess, some kind of princess, the very first ship, that there are still people in Nebraska that our government will not allow to leave because their coronavirus tests are coming back positive, but they don't have any symptoms whatsoever. They are completely healthy. Healthy American citizens not being allowed to go home. But that's the last cruise they'll ever take. Last time they'll ever leave our country. So this is why I tell you to be careful. Somebody asked me, well, what's the problem with not testing everyone in America? Well, first of all, that's not America. The government cannot force you to submit unless you are charged with a crime like DNA. You need to give a DNA sample, and they have a warrant. You are not forced to submit to any testing that you don't agree with. Your body is your body. And if we start saying that every American needs to be tested, which we know is impossible because our country is one of the only countries, by the way, who doesn't have enough testing kits anyway, you're going to be wasting test kits on people that you already know are negative. If you want to come test me, well, first of all, I'm going to get a lawyer to tell you can't. Second of all, just talk to me. I have not been out of the country since 2006. I have not been out of my state since October. Actually, September. I came home early this year from the Bay. I haven't been out of the state since September. And I have not been exposed to anybody. I mean, I don't leave my house, for God's sake. For me to even try to get a test if I wanted one, I don't think any doctor would order it. But what I didn't like is something that I heard on a news channel yesterday. I can't remember which one because I watch them all. I'm trying to be fair. I watch every single news channel for at least an hour a day just to get all the stuff, information, and then shuffle it together and figure out what's real and what's not. Usually I listen to the doctors. But here's the thing. You can't test positive if you're not having symptoms, and yet these people are having no symptoms and testing positive. The CDC is saying, okay, that maybe they have dead cells in their body, but they won't let them go. When you give up your rights to your own body to the federal government, try getting those rights back, even after this crisis ends. I'm going to refer you to 9/11. Many of you, especially us here in Pennsylvania, we are told that we are strongly urged to go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and get real ID. Now, the real ID law was put into place after September 11th, 2001, almost 20 years ago. My state of Pennsylvania decided to say, fuck that, we're not doing it. So they never instituted it. Most other states did. So, like, I know people who live in states that they've had real ID, they're fine. Pennsylvanians now have to run to the DMV, and now we have to submit birth certificates, proof of utility bills, that we live where we live, marriage license, all this personal information to just get a driver's license that will enable us to fly in our own country. And that is because during 9/11, we were afraid that people would hijack planes and fly them into buildings. When was the last time that happened? Anybody want to guess? Oh, yeah, September 11th, 2001. This law that was passed to prevent people from hijacking our planes and flying them into buildings and whatever it's supposed to do is no longer necessary, but try to get the government to rescind it. Now look, any American, anybody, non-American, can get in a car and drive to any state in this country they want to. But if you don't have the real ID, you just can't do it in a plane. Come on, guys. Is this really going to keep any of us safe? Or is it just going to give our states more money? Because the real ID is a lot more expensive. It's like $60. A regular driver's license is $24. You want real ID, you're paying more. And of course, again, they are controlling us. The government is controlling us. Just like those poor people who never, when they went on that beautiful vacation, thought they were going to end up having the end of their journey in Nebraska, in a hospital bed, people poking and prodding, sticking Q-tips all the way down their throat and all the way up into their brains, taking tests, government enforced tests. I don't know about any of you, but that scares the shit out of me. So yeah, be careful. Be careful what you put on social media. There are going to be so many people. We already see it in the grocery stores. I actually went to my corner store this morning. This is great because I do. I want to make this a conversation with you guys to let you know that this is not the end of our world, as long as we don't allow the government to make it the end of our world as we know it. We have to stand up. We really do. I went to my corner grocery store after all weekend watching Costco and Walmart and people killing each other. One person got stabbed because they were fighting over toilet paper. Seriously? So I said, I'm really hungry for sherbet. I could eat some rainbow sherbet. I'm really hungry for some fried chicken patty, those frozen chicken patty. I'm hungry for those. I'm going to walk down to the local store. Plus, I'm going to just get a few extra packs of cigarettes because for me, cigarettes and wine, that's a lot more important than toilet paper. Trust me. I can wipe my ass with just about anything. It's really hard to drink. I can't make my own wine. I'm not that good. And when there's a stressful thing going on, you really smoke more. So I really need my cigarettes too. Again, very healthy here. I walk down to the corner store. Shelves are stocked. They've got cereal. They've got milk. I didn't look for toilet paper because I don't need toilet paper, but I would guess they have toilet paper. One thing they didn't have was bananas. They said, oh, sorry, the banana shipment comes in tomorrow. I'm like, that's okay. Don't really need a banana. I have frozen peaches in the freezer. That's fine. I'll do peaches instead of banana on my cereal. But really, it was no big deal. It was good to know they have my cigarettes. Because I do worry a little bit about that. Because, of course, this essential, closing non-essential businesses, I think our governments are forgetting that for some of us, wine and cigarettes are very essential to actually, living our daily lives, especially if we are in a tight space and with our husbands who are working from home, our wives who are working from home, children that are home from school. You're going to need those wine and cigarettes. You're going to need it. You're really going to need the booze. There are people out there who are stocking up on ammunition because it's like, oh my God, I got to spend 2 weeks with my family. Well, if it gets too bad, I'll just shoot myself in the head. Fuck it. I'm serious. I mean, think about it. How many of you, when was the last time that you spent 2 weeks with your spouse, your children, and you can't go anywhere? You can't go to the Chuck E. Cheese. You can't go to the park. You can't send the kids to the neighbor's house to play. And yeah, you can't do that, by the way. Did you know that? See, some people are thinking, oh, 2 weeks, woohoo, vacation. Nah, no. No, you can't do that. What you can do with your children, if you're on the food stamps, because Nanny Nancy and Grandpa Chuck have done that, you can actually put your kids in the car, put them at risk for spreading the virus, and drive to their school and pick up the free breakfast and lunch that nobody expects you as their parent to provide. Yeah, imagine that. These poor kids, that must have been the most terrifying thing in the world. How am I going to eat breakfast and lunch? My mom don't got no job. She's always on the Candy Crush. We don't pay for that. We get it free because we poor. Mom don't work. Aren't we lucky? How are we going to eat? Don't worry. Nanny Nancy and Uncle Chuck, they took care of you. You're going to be just fine. You're still getting your free food. Sad thing is, we're not supposed to be going out and about, but it's okay for you to get in your car with your kids and go to their school and stand in line with other people. You're going to be 6 feet apart to get your free food. Even though you are sitting on food stamps, which that's what they're supposed to be used for, to buy milk, bread, eggs. Oh, wait, cheese, milk, bread, eggs, cheese. That's called an omelet with some toast. And it's all paid for by the food stamps you're already receiving. But no, Nanny Nancy is like, no, we got to give you some more free shit. How can we possibly expect American parents to feed their own children breakfast and lunch during the school year? That's ridiculous. I don't know. Senate, of course, didn't pass this bill yet because Senate Unlike the doctors, the president, the vice president, uh, even the House stayed till 2 a.m. on Saturday morning to vote for this bill. But the Senate said, you know what? It's the weekend. We're just gonna take off for our weekend. We can't give up a weekend. Well, a lot of people around this country were working all weekend. Medical providers, people who work in hospitals, in nursing homes, they were working while the Senate went home for the weekend to have cookouts and drink some wine and smoke some cigars, play some golf. How sad that this bill that is going to help pay salaries for people, give paychecks to people who cannot go to work, either because they're sick or because their businesses are being forced to close down by the government. How sad that the Senate isn't going to pass that at the very earliest sometime today. But wait, Mitch McConnell says he has some changes he wants to make to the bill, which means it has to go back to the House, which means it's going to be held up. This is bullshit, people. This is why when you give government power, too much power, they abuse it. These senators and congresspeople are trying to sneak shit into this bill that is supposed to only deal with this crisis, the coronavirus epidemic. And instead, they're worried about the Democrats want taxpayer-paid abortion. Hey, I think that's a great idea. Medicaid should cover abortions because people on welfare are the ones who actually should be getting abortions because they can't afford to raise children. Or they should be encouraged to put their babies up for adoption if they're morally against abortion. That's not the point of this, though. This bill is supposed to be about coronavirus. It's not supposed to be repealing the welfare to work bill that President Trump signed. It's not supposed to tell welfare people, well, don't worry. How dare President Trump tell you that if you have welfare, you need to have a job, too. We can't expect anyone who's poor with children to have a job, even if one's available. So they're trying to sneak all this stuff in. And when this crisis passes, as it will pass, try to get this shit repealed. Hopefully, if the Republicans take over the House in November, as I hope they will, and the Senate remains Republican-controlled, we can fix this shit that Pelosi and Schumer are trying to get sneaked in to a bill that is supposed to be taking care of this crisis, coronavirus. Now, coronavirus is a foreign virus. It didn't start here. We invited it in when we took those Americans off that ship and then decided to hold them hostage in Nebraska for 40 days. So it is a foreign virus, just like Ebola and Zika and swine flu, all foreign. They didn't show up in America. Coronavirus, however, is not a new virus. Veterinarians have known about coronavirus for a very long time. They used to vaccinate dogs and cats for it until it no longer became necessary to do that. And because I don't want to bore you with too long of a show, and I want you to listen to this, I'm going to save this for a show I'm going to do tomorrow. So, why should we be careful? Well, first of all, we should be very careful. What we say, what we do, what we share on social media, because Big Brother is watching. I heard that on the news. They said that they are going to use social media. You have a picture of yourself next to the Eiffel Tower, you might get a knock at the door. We want you to take a COVID-19 test. Remember this. Don't just say yes. Call your lawyer and ask for a warrant, because they need that to force you to take anything when they have no reason to suspect that you even have the virus, except for a picture on Facebook that could possibly be 10 years old. These memories that keep showing up on Facebook, sometimes I look at a picture, I think it was taken yesterday. Here it's 6 years old. So be careful. And don't panic. Don't freak out. Most people who have this virus, and believe me, before now, before all this craziness, in December, January, February, if you didn't feel good for a week, if you took off work, if you had the flu, if you had a fever, you might have had COVID-19. and you got over it, like most people get over it. You want to make yourself feel good? Go to YouTube and Google people who have survived COVID-19 with very little problems. People who basically stayed home for a week, ate chicken soup, got better, and went on with their lives. But you get into the government system where the government starts tracking your illness or your physical health. Be careful, because you could end up in Nebraska for 40 days. Political Paula, out.